everyone, today I have a super fun project for you using our embroidery stitch packs. It's this embroidered star table runner. Let me show you how to make it. Alright, so like I said, we're going to be making this adorable runner, and I was looking for a design that I could showcase some of our fun embroidery packs in. And so I designed this basic star pattern, and I opted to put the embroidery on either end. So it's facing towards the end, so there's not really a upside or downside to this runner. You can just view it from either end of the table. So let's go ahead and set this over here, and then we can dive into the supplies. So you're going to need 1/3 yard of the red fabric, 1 1/8 yard of your navy, and 1 yard of your background. You'll also need a squaring tool. I use the block lock. And we use these really fun embroidery stitch packs. I use the stars, stripes, and sparkles, and they are just so cute. So many fun designs in here. But we also have some really fun, this Sweet Meadow Springtime, and then Ingrid's Wildflowers too. So just grab whichever one you want, and let's get started. Alright, so let's talk a little bit about that embroidery first. I used a couple of the different designs for just the two ends because I figure I'll put some flowers or something in the middle of my block. If you're not going to opt for the embroidery, then you just need a 6-inch square in the middle. But if you are, I recommend using a 10-inch square to begin so you can fit it in the hoop and have plenty of room to trim. Okay, so we're going to trim this up to 6 inches. So I'm just going to use this 6-inch square ruler that I have. I love it so I can kind of see through it to center up my design and make sure that it's evenly spaced. So I'm just going to watch these little starbursts here and make sure I'm close to centered. That looks pretty good to me. And now I can just hold this in place and use my rotary cutter to trim this up. So I'll cut these two sides first, and now I can spin this and trim up the rest. I think this would be such a great block to do a whole quilt using these patriotic designs because the block goes together really quick. And so now our cute little embroidered middle is ready to go, and we can set it aside and start working on our star legs. So for the star legs, we are going to cut 7-inch squares from our red, our white, and our navy. So I went ahead and took care of that. And so we are going to make sets here. I'm going to pair a red and a white, and a red and a navy, just like so. And then I'm going to get a pin or a marking tool, whatever you prefer. And we are going to draw a line point to point in one direction. There's that one. And we'll do this one as well. There we go. And so to begin, I'm going to go ahead and take this to the machine and sew 1/4 inch away from that line on both sides. So let's go ahead and do that now. So I'm just going to adjust my needle here. Make sure I'm at that 1/4 inch. And I can go all the way down this side. And then I can follow this next one in right behind it. And I'll go ahead and clip my threads. And we'll bring this around and go down the other side. Again, just stitching 1/4 inch. There we go. All right, so now we can trim these apart. I've got those little threads holding them together, and we'll use our ruler to cut on that line that we drew. Here we have those two, and now these two. So now let's go ahead and take these over to the iron. I'm going to press them towards the red both times, just so that I can get these to nest the way that I want. So you might not consider the red the dark on this particular pairing, but it will give me the outcome that I want to make my seams nest. Just want to make sure we don't have any tucks or folds on those seams. And again, we'll roll these ones back towards the red. Oh, I missed some stitches there. Let me go ahead and take care of that. Better to fix it now than have to worry about it later. There we go. Okay. Alrighty, so now once we have that done, we are going to pair our red and white with our red and navy, and we want to nest these seams. So the reds should be on opposite sides of one another, and you can feel with your fingers when they're pressed in opposite directions that they just kind of lock in place, and that's what you're looking for. I'm going to go ahead and flip this over because it's easier to see my lines on this side. So now I will take my ruler, and same concept here. We're going to draw our line corner to corner, and so on both sides. And this is going to give us our quarter square triangles for our block. So there's that one. And let's do the same with this one. Remember, we want red on opposite sides here. And I'm just going to feel and make sure that those seams are really locked in place. And you can kind of roll back and test. That's what you're looking for. Especially in the middle, you want it to be nice and sharp. And so then let's go ahead and draw that line on this one. There we go. So again, back to the machine, a 1/4 inch away on both sides of our drawn line. And I love this project because the chain piecing makes it go super quick. Again, we'll just flip this around and come back down this way. Okay. So now in the same way that we did before, we can trim these apart and cut right on that drawn line. There's one and one more. And now when we open those up, we're going to have all of the 1/4 square triangles we need for one block. So let's go ahead and press these because I am going to use the block lock to square them up, and so we'll press them first. And the reason you really want to make sure that your seams are nested is so you get a sharp point there in the middle. That's what we're looking for. Beautiful. And one right. So now that we have all of those pressed, we can go ahead and square these up to 6 inches. So I really like to use the block lock when I am working with these. I feel like it just gives me a really precise measurement, and the size that we're looking for is 6 inches. And so I am going to slide this in here, and if you've pressed it towards the dark or towards the navy, then the block lock is going to be on the side with your white background. And so I like to give myself a little bit of room on all 4 sides, just so it's nice and square. And so keeping that in mind, that means I want the 6-inch marks of my block lock to intersect this seam. That's really the only thing you need to watch for. So 6 and 6, and now I can trim off these 2 sides. And it's just a tiny bit that you're shaving off, but it really will make a difference in the end. And so then we slide this down now, and our 6-inch should line up exactly in that seam again, and we trim off the other 2 sides. Just like so. Let me show you one more time. So remember, because we pressed towards the navy, the block lock logo is going to be on the side with the white. We're looking for 6 inches, and so we want that to match exactly with our diagonal seam there. We lock that in place, trim these 2 sides, spin it around, slide it down. Oops, I missed this little corner. Let me get that before we move on. There we go. So slide it down to 6 inches, and then we can trim off this last little bit. All right, I'm going to go ahead and square up these last 2, and I'll meet you back here for the next step. So I have 3 of them squared, but I thought I should go ahead and show you guys how to do this if you don't have a block lock, if you just have a regular square ruler. This one happens to be exactly 6 inches, which of course makes it easy. But it's really the same concept as the block lock. And so again, we're looking for 6 inches. And so I want these 45-degree lines to be exactly lined up with my seams so that they're going into those corners. And so let's watch for that. That looks pretty good. And the middle should nest right with the center of my square. And again, we're just going to trim this off. So you don't have to have a block lock to do this project. It's just my preferred one, but don't let it stop you from making. There we go. And so again, just checking that my 45 lines are lined up into those corners, my center's on the middle, and trimming off the excess. Perfect. There we go. So all of these are squared up to 6, and so now we can move on to our kind of square and a square blocks for our corner. And so to do that, I have cut a 6-inch navy square and some white 3 1/4 inch squares. And so we are going to start by snowballing, which is just sewing corner to corner to give a roundy shape on both of these opposite corners. And so if it's helpful, you can draw a line here. I have some diagonal seam tape on my machine, so I'm just going to go point to point on both sides, and then we'll trim that, come back and add 2 more. So let's go ahead and do this first. I'm going to adjust my needle so we're lined up there. There's side 1. Turn this around. Okay. So now we can trim this off, leaving our 1/4 inch seam allowance on that side and turn it around. There we go. And then I'm going to grab 2 more squares here. We'll take this to the ironing board, press it open, and then do the exact same thing in these 2 opposite corners. So we'll begin by just rolling these back. There's 1 and 2. And so then now we'll add these to our opposite corners. And again, we're going to sew point to point. All right, now we can flip this around and go to the other side. Same thing, sewing point to point. Okay, so let's go ahead and trim off that excess, leaving our seam allowance. There we go. All right, we'll press this back as well. So rolling those back. Beautiful. Now, if you've done this correctly, it's going to leave you your 1/4 inch seam allowance at all of your points so that you can keep those points in your finished block. And I like to just sit my ruler on here and make sure that I'm still close to that 6 inches. Sometimes when you're doing snowballs like this, it can get a little bit wonky, so it's worth just checking. That looks great. And so now I have the other 3 of these all done in the exact same way, and we can work on assembling our block. So let's go ahead and do that. I have my cute little embroidery that I'm going to use for the center. And then around that, we're going to use our 1/4 square triangles to make our star legs. And then we'll finish this off with our square and a squares in the corner. Just like so. It's such a fun and easy block. Then you're just going to sew your 3 rows together and put those together like a big 9 patch. And I just used 3 big blocks for this runner, and I sashed it in between with a 2.5 inch navy sashing and added that outer border as well. Let me look up the finished size of this one for you. It finishes at 20 by 57, so it's a great size. Again, I think this would be a super fun block to make a full quilt of. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I'll see you next time on At Home. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching At Home. We're so excited to be almost 1 million quilters strong here at Missouri Star. And so if you haven't already joined our family, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can be notified of all of our future tutorials, and we'll see you soon.